Tap into the shred powers of the gods and learn these 3 super cool tapping patterns that I picked up from masters of the guitar. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben Eller. On today's video, I'm going to show you guys 3 of the most important tapping patterns that I learned that are really easy to learn and incorporate into your playing, and also apply to any kind of tapping lick that you're doing, not necessarily just arpeggios like what we're going to be talking about in this video. As always, downloadable tabs as well as a bevy of backing tracks, bonus lessons, and so much more are available to everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. This week, for all of my lovely and loyal patrons, I'll be uploading some practice tracks to go along with all the licks that we're going to be talking about today. So sign up today, even for just $1 a month, and start playing more better. Gear-wise today, I'm using my lovely Suhr Modern Satin, and as far as the amp choice goes, I'm mixing things up a little bit today and trying something new. I'm using an STL AmpSim plugin that was designed in conjunction with my good buddy, metal producer extraordinaire, Mark Lewis. I got to know Mark Lewis working with him on the Whitechapel records that I've played on, but he's also worked with like every major metal band on earth right now. And he always has a knack for getting really amazing tones. So whenever I heard he was doing this plugin set with STL, I knew that I was gonna have to try it out. I'm really impressed by the way this thing performs. Be sure to go over to the STL site and check it out today. No DoD grunge pedals were harmed during the making of this video. The 3 tapping patterns I'm gonna show you guys in today's video were ripped from the playbooks of Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads, and Paul Gilbert. They're actually all pretty easy to learn, but if you guys want something a little bit more challenging, I'm kind of thinking about putting together a second part to this video that shows you all how to tackle some of the more advanced tapping styles by guitar players like Michael Romeo from Symphony X, Vito Bratta from White Lion, and other hunks. If that's something you guys would like to see in the future, let me know in the comment section below, as well as your tip-top fret tapper. For all 3 of these examples, we're going to be outlining a classically inspired 1-4-5 progression in the key of E minor. That means we're going to be using arpeggios to reflect an E minor, A minor, B major, or B7 kind of chord progression. The E minor generates the notes E, G, B, so when we tap, we're going to be using those 3 notes in some capacity. An A minor arpeggio is A, C, E, and lastly your B major is B, D sharp, F sharp. So all of the tapping patterns that we're going to be playing are going to directly reflect the notes that are in those chords. It only makes sense to kick this off with the tapping pattern that inspired us all, Eddie Van Halen's tremendous triplets. Let's hear it again at stepdad speed. So the first arpeggio here is the E minor, which is the notes E, G, and B, like I said before. And we're going to be achieving these with 2 notes in the left hand, 1 note in the right hand. So we're going to be using the 5th fret B string, there's our E note, our root. We're going to grab the 8th fret B string, our G note, our flat 3rd. And then the tap is going to happen here on the 12th fret B string. That's our B note, the 5th of the arpeggio. Now the way that Eddie typically played those tapped arpeggios was to start off by tapping the highest note in the pattern. So in our case, that's going to be the 12 on the B string. After you tap that note, pull off to the lowest note in the pattern, the 5 in this case, and then hammer on the middle note, the 8th fret in this case. So you could say the order of notes is like high, low, middle, okay? As you do that, you're going to play a solid triplet feel. Don't just do this like as fast as you can or whatever. Try to make your right hand the metronome, the one that's playing the beat, and think about how triplets would sound. Triplet, 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 and try to make it groove really consistently like that. Now for the example, I played all these, I think 8 times in a row. So as you play through this, what you're going to do is to make sure that you're going to have the high note, the low note, the middle note, and then you got to restart, right? So as you tap the high note, you can let go of that middle note now. That way you're sure you're going to be pulling off to the low note. Now the next arpeggio that we're going to play is an A minor, and we're going to achieve that by simply moving everything you just played on the B string over to the high E string instead. Same frets and everything. It generates the notes A, C, E, which is our A minor triad. Let's talk about how to make that transition a little more easier here, because coming off of that last E minor, the middle note's going to be your final note, right? Then you got to transition to the highest note on the high E, the 12 in this case. You don't want to have any bleed over like this. You can hear those two notes ringing together, and I don't like what I'm hearing. So what you want to be sure that you do is, as soon as you tap the highest note, at that nanosecond, just softly come off of that B string, okay? So you're going to have high, low, middle, and you're going to hold that note down until the nanosecond that you tap the high note on the high E. Let me do that again. We're going to play through that A minor arpeggio just like how we did the other one there. So it's going to be high, low, mid, 8 times in a row. Up next, we're going to move to the B major triad, which is going to use the notes B, D sharp, and F sharp, or frets 7, 11, and 14. Now, this is kind of a tricky transition to make. You were down here kind of in, 12th position land with the right hand, 5th position here with the left hand, and we're going to have to jump to 14 and 7, right? Whenever you make that jump, what you got to concentrate on doing is finding the 14th fret with your eyes first. If your eye is trying to track your tapping hand as it's moving like this, you'll lose your place. Find 14 with your eyes first. If you're just sitting here doing this, your fingers aren't going to run off because you're not looking at them or anything like that, right? So as you're tapping through that A minor arpeggio, set your eyes on fret number 14, find it with the right hand first. Now, as you're making that transition where we're hitting this note, that's the time that the left hand has to make its position shift happen too. Because if you try to do them both at the same time, you're going to have a gap in the notes. Watch the left hand move right as I do that tap on the 14. There it moves. Okay, I'll do it again. Move as soon as you tap that highest note. Now we're going to play that B major arpeggio there 8 times again. I recommend using your little finger because it's a pretty big stretch, before we move back to E minor. Now E minor is E, G, and B in any combination. It doesn't have to be E, G, B like what we played initially. It can be those 3 notes in any order we want to. We've already got the B note held down here on the 7th fret, so what we're going to do is just to change up the other 2 notes to make it an E minor arpeggio. We're going to play 7, that's our B, 12, there's our E, and 15, there's our G note for that last E minor arpeggio. So coming off of B, it's kind of like the 2 high notes here, just move up a fret and the low note stays the same. For some variations, you can always change up the order that those 3 notes go in. So instead of going high, low, mid, it can go high, mid, low for an interesting kind of reverse sound. You could also try making the lowest note the first note by doing a hammer on from nowhere, or a cold hammer as Tosin Abasi calls them, and just smack that note down with the left hand, hammer on the middle, tap the high one. The next pattern that we're going to learn here is inspired by Randy Rhoads' tapping that he did at the start of the Crazy Train solo. This is kind of a cool one here because you got this double tapped high note that happens at the start of every phrase, and it's kind of an unusual grouping of 5 notes per beat. Let's check it out. So this example is going to use all the same progressions and patterns and stuff as the last example. We're just going to incorporate Randy's tapping pattern that's pretty unique. He's kind of one of the only guys I've heard use this pattern. Now what makes this different than Eddie's is that first of all, we're going to go in a different order. This is going to go from the highest note to the middle note to the low note. But instead of simply being a triplet like Eddie's, Randy mixes this up a little bit by tapping the highest note twice. So you'll notice with both of those, I pull off to the middle note. So it's kind of like high, middle, then pull off to the low note. High, mid, low. High, mid, low. That gives you an unusual grouping of 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we're placing those 5 notes across a single beat like this, that's called a quintuplet. It's kind of like cramming 5 notes, which is kind of an irregular number, all into a single beat. Now again, as I play that, I'm not really trying to think exactly about spacing 5 notes across that beat. I'm just thinking of the first note of every segment as lining up with the downbeat. So if the downbeat is 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm feeling that in that first tap note that I'm playing on all those arpeggios. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the Rhoads lick, I played his pattern 4 times for every one of these arpeggios, starting off with the E minor. Transitioning to the high E string here for the A minor. Then I got the B major. And then finally the E minor again. And just like the Eddie pattern, you can get some more mileage out of this by changing up the order that the notes go in. So instead of going from the high to the middle note and then ending on the low, you could just as easily go from the highest note to the lowest note twice and then hammer on that middle note. I like that sound because the interval between the highest note and the lowest note is going to be a fifth to root. It's a pretty wide interval sound instead of just going in descending order like the original one did. You get a little bit more of a wide range kind of tonality whenever you phrase it that way. The cool thing about that pattern too is that neither hand is really working all that hard. If you isolate just what the tapping hand is doing, yeah, it does 2 quick notes, but then it gets a little rest break, right? So if I play that pattern, then just isolate the tapping hand, that's not so bad. And again, the left hand is barely doing anything at all either, but it's the combination of the 2 hands doing what they're doing there that sounds like a ton of notes are going by and that you're working really hard, when in reality, it's not that bad. If we combine the super fast triplet sound of Eddie's approach with the lazy hand thing we were talking about with Randy's pattern, we end up with a super cool one here that I ripped off from Paul Gilbert. Yeah, of course, we all recognize Paul more for his alternate picking chops and stuff like that, but whenever he does tapping stuff in his solos, it's always really well placed and really creative, and I love using this pattern all the time in my playing. Okay, this is really cool, and there's a lot of awesome stuff that we can do with this. And the idea is that you are tapping from the high note to the low note, then hammering on the middle note, right? Same thing as Eddie's pattern. High, low, mid. Then what we're going to do is change it up every other time into becoming high, mid, low. So what that means is that you don't have to deal with the, retracting the ring finger off of the note every time you restart the pattern like we did with Eddie's. You get to actually just set it down and be kind of lazy with it like this. High, low, mid, high, mid, low. High, low, mid, high, mid, low. So that means that we get to be good and lazy, especially with this hand here. You can see there's not really all that much going on. Rather than just being like a copy-paste thing like Eddie's pattern, where it's the same every time, Paul's pattern changed it up so you get a little bit more variety. And I played that pattern 4 times for each arpeggio, starting off with the E minor here. So we're going to play that by doing high, low, mid, low, 4 times in a row. Again, there's a triplet. Moving on to the A minor. High, mid, low. High, low, mid, high, mid, low. Here's your transition to B. Back to E minor. So if you take what your 2 arm hands are doing here and look at them separately when you play this pattern, it is hilariously simple, and you get so much sound out of it when in reality, neither of your hands is really working all that hard, even at pretty high speeds. Check this out. Let's go faster. Now even at this speed, if I separate the right hand up, that's not hard, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 8th notes here with the right hand. Even at really high speeds. Not much going on here. It's pretty easy. If you look at the left hand, that's like beginner speed hammer-ons pull-offs. It's really not hard at all to do that. But it's that combination of the slow left hand and the double time right hand that gives us that sound. It sounds like a lot is going on when in reality, nobody's really doing all that much work. It's like a team effort, if you will, that makes it sound so cool when it's all played together. This is a really cool one you can use to travel across the strings, even if you're just using like a 3-note per string scale pattern or something like that. This sounds really cool when you take it through the strings like this. That's just an A major scale pattern and 3-note per string right there. When you play it ascending like that, it kind of gives you that autographed Steve Lynch kind of sound, sort of like something you'd hear and turn up the radio. So I'd like to encourage you guys to take those 3 different tapping patterns right there and see what you can do with them in your own playing. Expand on them. You don't have to use them just to play Van Halen style arpeggios. It can be scalar stuff like what we did just a second ago, or whatever kind of sound it is that you're trying to cook up there. Take these ideas, put them into your own playing. Don't just copy what the other guys did. Because you got to remember, guys, it's just like they say, good artists innovate, great artists steal. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked what you see and you want more of it, you want to grab those backing tracks and stuff like that, be sure to consider supporting my channel even for just $1 a month over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. You can also find the tabs over there on the Instagriddles by using this hashtag, that one. And don't forget, if you like the tone that I had on today's video, you can have it as well as a bunch of other awesome presets that Mark created in conjunction with the STL guys by buying that ToneHub plugin that he's got over there. So be sure to check out their site for details on that. Well guys, it's been fun as always. I hope that gave you all some inspiration to start doing some cool tapping licks in your soloing, but it's time for me to depart. So I recommend getting away from the computer, grabbing your guitar, and getting to work. Less clicking, more picking.